But the new growth that's coming up, it's difficult right now. So I want to just say that what I'm starting with is a chant that I learned just this weekend. And I'm going to say it one time now, and then we're going to have a little storytelling about some really difficult facts. Don't numb to this, don't numb it out. Let your heart flow in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and keep your heart alive. Stay soft to this, don't numb it out. Let your breath flow in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and let your heart alive. To keep your heart alive, to keep your heart alive. I am in my 70th year on the planet. I just keep saying it because I just can't believe it. I can't believe it, especially when I notice things that make me anxious. Social Security, because of what the Trump administration has done, will run out in 2031, and I'll be 74. That's 5 years from now. So, whew, human spiritual evolution. Once upon a time, there was a land that colonized another land, or two, or three. But what happened for me was I'm not a Super Bowl fan, but Bad Bunny stirred up some thoughts. And I wanted to know more about Puerto Rico because I am a lifelong learner. And what I learned about Puerto Rico over what I already knew is breaking my heart open, breaking my heart open. It is helping me understand a piece of what got broken for people of the global majority by the white minority in fear and superpower control freakout time was the US Census. So the US Census has, and this has always driven me absolutely around the bend. First of all, Hispanic, non Hispanic. And then from there, it breaks down, and you can choose one race, or I think the updated census allows you to choose two races or to choose other. There are Black Puerto Ricans, and there are many more of them, than is usually counted for complicated reasons, way more complicated than I understood. So that's what I want to start with, is what I learned. There are two excellent sources of edutainment for you. Edutainment? Edutainment. Yeah, it's the first one's funny enough. I will put this at my post page. The idea that a really cool guy gave you all the clues to what Bad Bunny was saying about Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican culture in Spanish, but through the symbolism of all those different parts of that 15-minute halftime show. I wanted to go to this source to understand way more about this US colony. There's a song that references Puerto Rico not being Hawaii. It's a Bad Bunny song, I believe. I knew a lot about the history of Hawaii. I did not know as much about the history of Puerto Rico. So let's just review, because I will refer you to a series, and the one that you would be linked to is called How the U.S. Stole Puerto Rico. And I have cliff notes from this I think it's 20 minutes long. It's not super long, but it's not super short either. I think it's 20 minutes. Anyway, I cliff noted it, and I'm glad I did because I can't find it again. When I say that, it always shows up, this video not available. I don't know about that. Anyway, Puerto Rico was passed from Spain after 400 years of Spanish occupation or control to the U.S. by way of the U.S. coming in to say they were going to help Puerto Rico with their struggle to be independent and then absorbing Puerto Rico. All of the governors, this is all happening in the late 1800s, and all of the governors to Puerto Rico were appointed by the United States government, and they've all been white men who didn't speak Spanish. They are given total control, political, over the island, and it was governed by businessmen, which is what happened eventually in Hawaii, but that's a whole separate story, and I can't go down that rabbit hole right now. Immediately, sugar became the businessman's monopolistic, what we can do here that will make us a lot of money, crop. Domino sugar, to be exact. And what happened to the culture is heartbreaking. Puerto Ricans were devalued. Their money was outlawed. The currency was forbidden. Spanish was forbidden in the schools and in public institutions. This is all happening in the late 1880s, 90s. Puerto Rico gets U.S. citizenship when? Well, 1917, right in time for all Puerto Rican men to be eligible for the draft. All right, still no right to vote, but eligible for the draft. And a sugar megalopolis with very, very low wages and essentially, the low wages, enough said. The dynamics between agribusiness and workers has been sick from the very beginning. All right. Wages were $1 an hour. And then the third thing, besides sugar monopoly, amazing opportunity to totally work people to death with very low wages, was the military bases. It was strategic to put bases on Puerto Rico. So that's the three things that have been in the grip of the United States, the rest of us. A brilliant man, Abiezu Campos, Harvard Law graduate, Puerto Rican national, independence leader for 25 years. He was jailed and he led the nationalists. This was such a complicated and not sad story, but the fact that I didn't know anything about this makes me very sad. There was a horrible, horrible doctor. His name was Cornelius Rhodes. He was a white man who was assigned to Puerto Rico, hated it. Quote, here's a quote. This quote, there were so many things about him that were problematic, but this quote was a bombshell. Quote, Puerto Ricans are without a doubt the dirtiest, apologies here, the dirtiest, laziest, most degenerate, and thievish race of men ever to have inhabited this sphere. It makes me sick to inhabit the same island with them. This letter that he wrote also went on to say, I've done my best to exterminate them. I've killed 8, and I've introduced cancer into a number of others. All right. This was a letter that was found and caused a huge uprising by the nationalists. This was happening in 1935. The uprising on Palm Sunday, there was a massacre where 18 people were killed, 18 Puerto Ricans, and 100 wounded. I know nothing about this from any history books I ever read. This is all under Calvin Coolidge, I believe. And it was sort of like pat on the back. Oh, no, 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 no. This is happening under Truman. All right. It gets very, very confusing, but the essence of what I wanted to say was we're getting to the point where you get to see some horrible comparisons to what has happened to Black Americans who were radically political by the languages of white supremacists. Okay. That's what's happening in Puerto Rico. Okay. What's happening is there were these uprisings, many were killed, and then the FBI went crazy on Puerto Rico, and with local police collaboration from the early 1930s through the 70s, it was COINTELPRO, what we saw here in the United States on steroids. Everybody was watched, everybody was surveyed, everybody was bribed, extorted into snitching on their neighbors. And this whole time period had files kept on everybody, every detailed files. The files were called Encampered Las Encarpentas. And I can understand how we have so much trouble speaking honestly when you have a history like that so recent. With these uprisings, we had the other thing that resonated with what I saw with Black American revolutionaries was Puerto Rico was the only place in the United States besides Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the United States, the Move in Philadelphia movement, we couldn't prove Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the United States bombed its own citizens. So with that, of those uprising, the United States dropped bombs in 1950. There was an assassination attempt by the nationalists against Harry Truman, and as a result, 3,000 Puerto Ricans were rounded up. Now we're seeing that happen again, but it's just amazing how many times we have in our history, even recently, been persecuting groups of people. And Campos, remember the leader of all of this, he'd been in and out of jail for years, and he was the ways we do these things. He was radiation poisoned. He had symptoms of radiation poisoning. He had a stroke and eventually died in prison. So 50 years of state-sanctioned surveillance. There were 100,000 files on Puerto Rican citizens. So when I saw all of that, it gave me such pause to feel and think into what I used to be judgy about with respect to white Americans, particularly white girls, who would say, I didn't know. I just didn't know. Well, this is a situation where I just didn't know. What I did know was about the women's reproductive health issues that resonate so deeply with me as a woman of enslaved African descent, and knowing what happened in my people's bodies that allowed the kind of medicine to be done today that everybody is so proud of. And that was that Puerto Rican women first were sterilized, as in hysterectomies, not simply tubal ligations, both without their permission. La Operación was what it got called. A lot of the cultural sort of mythology would say that if you were Catholic, to have one big sin, Father, forgive me, I have had the operation, is better than having like birth control pills. every month. But the second horrible thing was that birth control pills were essentially developed on the bodies, over the dead bodies. 3 women died in the studies that the pharmaceutical companies who could do things in Puerto Rico that they could not legally do in the United States. And they did those things to Puerto Rican women. And those things involved dosages that were so high that they were giving women strokes, birth control pills. Okay, so 3 women died along these trials, and many women to this day are still the products, or the suffering, or the culture of Puerto Rico is heavily influenced by all of these reproductive rights violations. Last and hardly least, you heard when I was speaking with a Puerto Rican friend last week on my live stream that 50% cesarean rate we're seeing in Puerto Rico right now. What's that all about? So that was where I wanted to go, because that's what Bunny inspired in me. You know, how crazy can that be? So I, as I said, I'm a lifelong learner, and I really like to feel into what will help me stay sane, because it does feel as if the world is spinning in more and more wild ways. Wild West ways, yes. Why? Because there is a mythology around all of that, isn't there? Go west, young man. Go west, young woman. I am not going to wax poetic around that. I'm going to stick to the topic, which was Puerto Rico has more people listing themselves as white on the census, partially because it was a way to be resistant in Puerto Rico in a situation where there was so much ranking by class and color happening under the thumb of the United States white supremacy culture, that were the white governors, that were the people who outlawed Spanish in the schools. Colorism has hurt us people of the global majority, and in my personal life and my family, I still suffer from that too much rather than endure. I haven't gotten to right size it yet. I still feel confused and guilty. But in my family of origin, I am 5 generations out of enslaved people and their oppressors. Otherwise, I wouldn't be this color. So I could go looking for those oppressor people. And I am timid about that at this moment in my life. The things I don't want to know. I looked up the name of my family and got enough information to suggest that they were landowners in the 1880s and 1890s on the eastern shore of Maryland. That's as much as I've lifted up under that particular corner. Puerto Ricans have a lot of issues with colorism, as do African Americans, but the Puerto Rican political flavor was, it was a bit of a, to the census people, to say we're all white. But since then, I have seen and witnessed how complicated it gets in families, and how the language of Spanish has much more variety to it and gives classifications by hair and hair texture and by skin color. And that's what African American colorism uh, labeling does. We're just starting to get comfortable having conversations about this. Yeah, just now starting to get comfortable. So I said that I wanted to share that chant with you, and I'm going to bring it in again because we're later in this program, and I want to sing it through 3 times. And I want anybody who listens to this, and I say this as a moving prayer, to feel into what we have suffered through endured and really ought to settle into our power place in our anger and our heart space of courage, not discouragement, to dream better solutions moving forward, right? So don't numb to this, don't numb it out. Let it all flow in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and keep your heart alive. Stay soft to this, don't numb it out. Let yourself breathe in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and keep your heart alive. Don't numb to this, don't numb it out. Let your heart feel in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all. And let your heart alive. Stay soft to this. Don't numb it out. Let it all flow in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all. And keep your heart alive. One to this. Don't numb it out. Let it all flow in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and keep your heart alive. Stay soft to this. Don't numb it out. Let yourself breathe in and out. You're strong enough to feel it all and keep your heart alive. 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 Stay soft to this. And what this is this week, that's enough for me. I hope you find yourself in a place that's peaceful and that the beginning of March, which for me, I will be focusing on Women's History, Herstory Month in March, is coming up right around the corner. So that's all I have to offer at this moment. Thank you so much for coming to my live stream. Send me some topics you would like to listen to, talk over, and we will have a guest or two coming in soon. Thank you.